We are so glad you're here. This episode, we are talking about goal setting as we're starting off 2024. So, if this is something that's on your radar, something that you know you need to do, listen to this episode. You're going to love it. We've got some great tips, practical things to set into motion as you start your year off. Hello, and welcome to Happy, Healthy, and Skeptical. We are your hosts, Christy Palermo and Jennifer Hobson. Happy 2024! This is our first podcast of the new year. Very exciting. We have a whole year. We started in January last year, so now we are getting going for our whole second year. We have a lot coming at you. We already brainstormed for this coming year. Lots of things coming, but a great way to start the year is we wanted to talk about goal setting. So starting it off with a question for you, Jen, do you think is the most effective way to goal set to ensure you achieve your goals?
I feel like goal setting, it's almost up there with self-care, like overused words. I think it's kind of getting up there. And maybe it's just in my world because I spend so much time talking about goals with myself, talking about goals with other people that sometimes I'm like, oh, it's almost an overused word, this goal setting thing. And I think it has to go a lot deeper than just being like, I want to do this and I want to buy that and all of these other things. And goal setting really is a much deeper and I want to kind of say intuitive process. You have to actually do a lot of personal work to figure out, first of all, am I even picking the right goals before I even decide whether or not I can achieve these goals. I think a lot of times goal setting needs to come from that deep work of where am I at right now? Who do I want to be and who do I have to be to achieve these goals that I set for myself? So there's definitely these bullet points that I have when I'm going in for goal setting. And the very first two that I have to do, and they have to go hand in hand, is I have to start with vision. And what I mean by vision, and I even want to encourage people to do this same exercise, is creating the vision of who and what you want your life to look like. And that's not, big picture. I want to be a millionaire and all of these other things. It's literally, I want to, when I wake up, I want to have this personal time to journal. And then I want to be able to have my tea. And then I want to have quality time with my kids. And I want to have to get breakfast, like this ideal, right? And again, it's not always going to look like that because all days are different. But in a perfect world where you achieved your financial goals, your health goals, your family goals, what would that day look like? And spend time journaling from the time you wake up until the time you would put your head on the pillow. What would that day look like? And the deeper the detail, the clearer the vision, and the clearer the vision, the more connected you are to why you want to achieve those things. So those are the two things that go hand in hand. And that exercise was actually, shared with me about 7 years ago from my mentor. And it's something I have done every single year. And when the vision isn't super clear, it's when I'm less likely to achieve the goals I set. And if the vision is clear, but I don't know why I want those things, I also typically don't achieve those goals. And when I'm talking about why, it's literally that. Why? For me, so a perfect example, I'm kind of going all over the place with this, but when I first joined my first online business 7 years ago, the why was I doing it? And for me, the original why was I wanted a side hustle that would pay for daycare if we had another child. Because that was crazy. If we had our current circumstances and wanted to grow our family, we couldn't. We just couldn't afford the daycare, right? So that was the first why, and that was the first vision. However, as I evolved and became more successful in that business, the why and the vision evolved. And I think that happens for a lot of people. And the why changed to why not be the person that gets to stay home with the kids and create something successful? Because that was what I was always, that silent fear in the back of my head. Well, if I'm a stay-at-home mom, and believe me, you don't have to be more than a stay-at-home mom. Being a stay-at-home mom can be your entire purpose. And that is a very powerful purpose. However, I wanted something outside of the home, and I was always afraid that if I stayed home with the kids, I wouldn't have any other adult purpose. And that was crazy for me, right? So the vision and the why changed from, so if I want to add to my family, I can make more money and pay for daycare, to I want to be able to be home and create something really epic outside the house. And why would I want to do that? Because I want it to be fulfilled in two ways. So getting back to the original idea of the very beginning, before we even get into the bullet points of keep on going on your goal setting, when you're creating these goals, this crystal clear vision, and I'm talking, and if you're making a clear vision, this includes all your senses, right? What does it look like? What does it even smell like, right? Is your morning smelling like coffee? Are you a candle person? Are you a tea person? Are you walking on the beach? You're smelling salt? What is that vision? Getting to every single sense, because if you can connect with that, I mean, think about that. How nostalgic are smells? I can tell you a smell right now, and you're going to think of a time and a memory in your life. So down to that wire visual, where are you sitting? Are you reading in the morning? What chair are you going to be sitting in? What kind of breakfast are you going to be making? Are you going to start with healthy breakfast, or you're going to indulge in the morning? What is your idea? And then taking the time to write down, this is why I want to create that. And I'll go one step further, bringing the people that are the closest to you in on that vision, letting them know, hey, these are the goals I'm setting, and this is why, and I've included you, and this is why I would want to make this goal, not just for me, but for all of us, including people on the goals. It doesn't make you feel so alone and that you're just trying to achieve it. And then when you get there, they'll know about it. Well, why shouldn't they know about it the whole way? And I think that's been super powerful. I could literally talk about vision and why for an entire hour, and how it has impacted not just my life, but how I goal set every single day.
I think you touched on so many great points there that is so important, because it can be way too general to think of the year, and it can be that word overwhelming to think of the whole year and what we want to set out for ourselves. So I think what you're saying, to set out first for the vision, to envision what you want it to look like in the coming year, but 5 years, 10 years, where you want to be going, and then work backwards from there. And then, okay, what are the pieces I want to work on right now? What are the pieces I want to work on this year? And being able to, picture ourselves in the moments of being those people. Most of it's also, we tend to think, okay, well, sometimes we think I could never get that, or that seems too far away. So we have to allow ourselves to envision ourselves in these moments of a different part of ourselves. Like, we actually have to grow into that person to be able to have those things. So we're not always connected with it now. And allowing yourself to see yourself as that person that has it. So maybe I'm not that person yet, but I need to grow into being that. So I think that's a great point. And I love too that you're saying to bring other people into it, because also, one, yes, it's more fun to have people on the journey knowing what you're working on, but two, it helps hold you accountable to what you're going to be working on through the year, and reminding you, and having that buddy too, to check in 3 months, 6 months, even next month, especially February. We
Right.
definitely
And
want to
if
check
you
back in
have
February.
if you have the right people around you, they're the ones that are going to cheer you on when the belief is kind of waning, right? And maybe
Mhm.
it's a partner, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's even your kids. And if you're not in that situation, then it's those really supportive friends. I know for me and my oldest son, it's kind of funny, right? They see everything we do. And I had a meeting recently with basically his education support group, and they were saying, it's so funny when we give him goals, he tries to achieve them as quickly as possible. And it was that idea of, he's 8 and he already knows what goal setting means. And yes, he tries to accomplish them as quick as possible. So that's it's his personality. However, it reminds me of, once you've created the vision and you've connected to the why, then you have to apply a timetable. What I have learned is, if you create the vision and the why, and there's no end date, you are more likely to continue putting off the things that you're required to do to achieve it. So if you're saying, I'll achieve this, I know I'll achieve it. I have the belief in myself. I'll just get to it at some point. I love that that whole conversation I've had so many times as a coach is, well, I know that I can do it. I'll just, I'll get to it when I'm less busy, when life's less hectic, when the kids are older, and like all of these things. And I'm here to be like, first of all, life's never going to be less hectic. That's the point of life. It's lifing. It's happening. It's typically not going to get less hectic because if you are a person that lives in hectic, you seek that style out. You seek to be in constant chaos. So until you change that behavior, you're not going to move the needle forward. But applying a timetable, and guess what? It's okay if you don't hit the exact day, but saying, I'm going to achieve by June, halfway through the year, my first goal, and you're not right there, but you achieve it in August, guess what? Putting the timetable of June made sure that you didn't wait 2 years to achieve that goal. And I think that is super important for people. And the other,
Mhm.
well, and the other side of why we're connected to it, and you and I have talked about this many times. You may think you want a goal, but if you haven't determined why, when you are in chaos and you're not feeling motivated or inspired and you're tired, and it's easier to turn on Netflix and binge your favorite show than it is to talk to a person or whatever it is that you're required for your goal, to go to the gym, to eat healthy. When you don't have a clear why, there's nothing to remind you of why you got started. And it's that thing that has to keep you on track. And my other thing is taking, once I've decided those whys, putting these triggers all around my house to remind me of why, right? Like on my screensaver of my phone, on the screensaver of my computer, I created a vision board, right? These are all visuals. Visuals have a big impact. Putting maybe there's a trip I want to earn. Well, guess what? The picture is printed. It's on the fridge so everyone can see. All these different triggers, or maybe there's a picture in your car. Deciding where you're going to go the most frequent in the day so you're reminded over and over and over and over of why you chose this goal to begin with. And I think a lot of times at the beginning of the year, what happens is people make resolutions. Resolutions and goals are two different things. They just are. Resolutions typically, not always, but typically are things you want to stop doing, right? It's something like, oh, I don't want to eat fast food 85 times a week. Or I want to spend less time watching TV. I want to spend less time. It's all these things that you want to take away from your life. And I switch, New Year's resolutions to New Year's goals because words are important. And I change them to New Year goals because I would rather add something into my life that I can achieve versus taking something away because I think I need to change my life. And I
And that
think,
little bit of a shift in your word choice, I think, is so true. When you're taking something away, we feel like it's harder because we're losing something. But if we're working towards gaining something, it just naturally gives you more energy. It puts a little pep in your step. And then I also like that you use the word trigger to see. I mean, I know that can be a negative word in other senses,
yeah,
but I like that you use it for triggering you went around the house or around your day to see something, because it really does give you that little bit of a, like, maybe in a month from now when you see it, it gives you that little bit of a jolt of like, oh, I haven't even thought about that. I actually forgot about it. But if you had your little trigger words or notes to yourself, I like to keep them. Somebody once told me they had a post-it note on their dashboard of their car. And so last year I did that a lot. And so this past year I tried to have a post-it note in my car, and it really works. Like, I actually would forget about it until I get in the car and you see that thing, that post-it, whether it be a word or a goal, your actual goal, or sometimes a drawing of something that can inspire. Like sometimes I'll do dollar signs in certain places just to kind of remind me to like not be spending and be a little more mindful and respectful of the money I do have, so that, you know, I can create more space for more money to come in. So I think these are all such great points to think about. And like you say, the idea of resolution versus goals. So one thing that I always keep in mind too, as I'm setting my New Year's goals, we talked about this last year in our first podcast, I remember, is picking a word for the year. And I have talked about this with people. I've been doing it, I think I counted, this is like maybe my 9th year doing word of the year, 9 or 10, and how impactful it has been every single year. And so I love to touch on it. I love to talk about it because it is connected to your goal, because it's thinking about what is that one thing. And it always takes me kind of some time to get there. This year, for the first time, I did it like the first time I have to do it while journaling, because I can't quite organize my thoughts. I'm like, what do I want to focus on this year? And this time, for the first time, I went to write that out, and I immediately wrote down a word and was like, that's it. And that doesn't happen often. Sometimes it takes me pages or days or weeks even to be like, what is it that I really want to work on this year? So last year I had the word cultivate. And so it always shows up in ways throughout the year. And that's one of those things I have to have triggers for throughout my house, throughout my vision board, because I'll actually forget about it sometimes, and you want to revisit and be like, oh yeah, why did I want to work on this? And it usually shows up in ways that you don't expect. Like I expected it to be more of cultivating community through my business, which I already have a great community in my business too, but I wanted to keep cultivating that, and also where we live. But I actually found that through the year, I ended up cultivating a lot with my personal family, which I found to be a cool, like, yes, I cultivated in other ways that I wanted to, but the nice surprise was more in the personal aspect of it, which it just always does that. It shows up in ways you don't expect, along with the ways you do expect, but usually differently than you envision, if that makes sense.
Well, and I think they show up the way you need them to,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Like sometimes
100%.
we have this idea of what we want to achieve and what we want to accomplish, and sometimes we're slowed down in that journey, and that's okay because we were meant to learn something else, you know, from that experience, or even change entirely in trajectory. And yes, I love the dashboard. And the other one I love, if you guys have ever read Mel Robbins, Chrissy and I have read several of her books, you know, she does the high five habit. And it's that idea. I generally hope that most of you listening brush your teeth in the morning. It's one of the things you do, right? Typically, you don't even have to think about it because it's one of those habits that you've stacked, right? We've talked about habit stacking in the past. So utilizing the bathroom mirror is a super powerful one if you want to be reminded at the very beginning of your day what you're setting out to today. Because, you know, there's so many times we can get off track, or we're just frustrated, or we just don't freaking feel like it. Like we just don't feel like it. And I think it's important to go through those steps, right? The vision is first, discovering why and connecting with it, really understanding why, setting those different places within your life, within your day, to remind you of that why daily. And then the next two that I do, Christy, is I book the time. I have to book the time because it's just like a dentist appointment. I like talking about teeth, apparently. It's just a dentist appointment, or your physical, or right, your oil change, or going to the gym. Most of these things do not get done unless there is time made for them. Like most of the time, we don't wake up on Saturday morning at 7 a.m. and go, I'm gonna go get the oil change. Like it's just not something you do. It's usually already planned. So just like the things that in taking care of ourselves, we have to take care of our goals. And we do that by providing the time that they need, the time that's required to achieve them. Wanting and dreaming and vision and why are not going to get it done. They're the things that keep you motivated and inspired, but they're not the things that actually get you to where you want to be. So what do I then do at the time is I have to spend time and go, all right, if the goal is, so one of my goals this year is to get to Scotland, which is where my sister lives. I will be 40 this year. It will be my 10-year wedding anniversary. And at this very point in time, with how I want to see my finances grow and be the way that I want them to be, that's not on the docket. So for me, that is a big goal. But I can't go, oh, well, hopefully I make it there. Okay, cool. I guess I'll be looking at pictures that my sister posts for the rest of this year because it's not going to happen. So what do I have to do? Well, why do I want to go there? I really have to figure it out. Even what's it going to feel like when I get there? Will I see Jamie Fraser when I'm there? Probably not, but I can dream about it, right? Those are the things that I get to go, but I have to dial it back and go, all right, so I am going to commit to my business and I'm going to grow it to this level. So I have this much in savings and I have to talk to this many people to achieve that goal. And I have to coach and support and cheerlead this many people until June so that I could do it this year and not next year, whatever it is. Right. And guess what? There's a big old picture of Scotland on my vision board. And maybe that's also going to go on my screensaver. And maybe it's also because I want to spend some time with my sister who lives across the pond. Whatever it is, you can't just hope and dream that these things just miraculously happen. That's like, wanting the perfect spouse to just knock on your door when you don't go anywhere in life. You just stay home all day, right? Or wanting the perfect job, but you don't network and meet the right people. It just doesn't happen. So as I go back, and yes, word of the year is very important. I haven't been doing it as long as you, Christy. I think it's been about 6 or 7 years. The word that I came up with, I was actually brainstorming and I'm releasing Shine Up coaching this year. And that's the word, right? It came to me as that's what I want to encourage other people to do, is to shine. So if I'm encouraging other people to do this, then hint, hint, wink, wink, that needs to be my own word. I need to shine in order for my clients to shine. And so there's all these different ways that you come up with it, but the best way I encourage people, and sometimes it'll be a very specific and realistic word, maybe, right? I don't really love that word, realistic, but write different words down. Go through the dictionary if you're really totally off of it, right? Some of my words have been commitment, they've been consistency, they've been abundance. These are the types of words that really keep me in alignment with what I want to create. Where I've never used a word like cultivate. So we're all in different areas. And sometimes when we pick the word, it shows up the way that we need, not the way that we thought it would.
Absolutely. And I as you talk about your word, I think it's so perfect for you. So hearing it, just is so cool. As you hear other people's, you're like, oh, okay, you like kind of see how it makes sense. And also as you find yours, it's like once you write it down or say it out loud, like you just know, and you're like, okay. And sometimes it's a little scary. Most of the time it is an uncomfortable word that you're like, ooh, I know I need to work on that, but I don't really want to. Like there's that kind of sense of it, but when that's right. And so I did just find my list too. And so this is actually my 11th year doing words of the year, which is pretty cool. I started in 2014. So some of my words are balance, compassion, relax, immersion, connection, belief, so you just know what you need to work on. So my word for this year is intention. And so I was thinking of that as my intention with setting my goals for the year, actually, because I can sometimes overdo it. I tend to be really, I don't want to say overzealous, because I like that too. I like being overzealous and setting big goals and lofty goals and things that seem out of reach. But also sometimes I do too many, if that makes sense. And then I'm
trying to understand. So you're saying overdue as in there's too many things to achieve and it's hard to focus your attention?
And then I'm not focusing my attention enough where it needs to be. And some years that's okay, because I am in a place where I can do that, like more things, but then maybe not all the things get done the way I want them to. So as I was coming to my word was just thinking more. So as I was thinking of this word this year, I was thinking, okay, I really want to be intentional, because this past year I had my third child. So I am in a different season with the little one and a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old. Like it's just a different place where I'm at in life right now. So I have to be super intentional. So my goals just look different this year. So I thought that that is a thing I want to work on for the whole year too. So I'm not spreading myself too thin, where I'm giving my family the intentional time that I want to give it, giving my businesses, giving my projects that I'm working on, my health. Like I want to be intentional with each one of those things. So I thought that was a good word of the year for me, which
Well,
tied into my goal setting as well.
and I think a lot of people can relate to that, right? As you can either go, my life is too crazy for me to accomplish anything or, be better at anything or be intentional with my time, or you can, maybe your word is choice, right? You have to choose, you have to decide, you have to make a decision that these things matter enough to you to make them a priority. And I definitely think people can relate. There are some of us that we get almost like kind of overachieving, like, right? I made 25 goals for this year. Guys, I'm here to tell you that is actually more detrimental to your accomplishments than it is saying you want to achieve more things. And I'm not here to poo-poo on you. Maybe you are that very rare bird and you're going to achieve all 25 things. I want to encourage you to go, all right, these 25 things are things I want and I want to achieve, but these are the top 3 and make those your focus and those your priority. It is very difficult to make time for 25 goals every single day. And if you're not showing up in small amounts of time consistently every single day for the things you want to achieve, it's going to be a lot harder. You just can't do what we like to call the puke and run, right? You go all in one day and you're going, and then you don't show up for 8 days, and then you're going, and then you don't show up for it, right? You're just sprinting, sprint puke, sprint puke, sprint puke. It's not a good feeling. You don't feel like you're actually making any headway. And a lot of it becomes because we're all over the place and we're not connected with the why. So I think a lot of what you said, Chrissy, people can relate to, right? We're either making too many goals or we're not connected to the goals, or we look for the excuses of why not. I have 3 little kids. I'm too busy. I want family time to be important. So that means I can't do anything else. Well, that's not true, right? But we have to be very intentional with our time. And I think,
And going off of what you're saying with the sprint puke, like I know that feeling too, and that's not sustainable for a year. It's not like, so you want to be able to set things that you can keep up with, keep going with, keep working towards, but also not all goals are going to take all year. So if
yeah,
you set 3 really good goals, like we tend to, as you talked about time management, sometimes we give ourselves a whole year or 6 months and we don't need that long. So if you get to those goals early in the year, then you set the next one that's manageable. So you want to be manageable in it. So I think to wrap up what we've been talking about, the key points when you're setting your goals is, as you mentioned at the beginning, is to set your vision. What is it that you want your year to look like, your life to look like? Who are you working towards to be? So as you have that very strong vision, you also don't want to think about why. So as you mentioned, and I totally agree with this, is journal on it, journal on it, journal on it, because you're going to create that vision for yourself and why. And that why is what's going to keep you showing up every day. And then to round that out, you want to think about how you're going to show up each day, that daily activity, to be able to work towards your why. So I think those are the key things: vision, why, and your daily habits, your daily activity of what that's going to look like. And along with that, I'm just going to throw in the scheduling it in your day. So your daily activity, but where in your day. And we can talk about habit stacking again, because I think that's really important in something. So we'll do that in another episode. But feel free, reach out to us. We love this conversation. Tell us your word of the year. Tell us if you're struggling to find your word of the year. Maybe we can help you get there, find it as your goal setting. Have that conversation with us. We'd love to hear what goals you have that you're setting for yourselves. Let's root for each other. Like that's what this podcast is about too, right? Like we love community, and let's all help each other, support each other in getting there. And let's make 2024 so awesome. I'm so super pumped for it. And let's go get it. Let's get there, guys. So follow us on Instagram at Happy Healthy Skeptical, and let's keep going, and we'll see you there.